On August 29, 1997, Skynet, a computer system built to protect us, became self-aware. It viewed humanity as a threat to its existence and decided to act.
When I was little, my mom and grandmother were not happy with my dad when he let me watch violent films. A few years ago, out of curiosity, I asked him why he didn't put on, more appropriate content for my age. And his response was, and I quote, "I didn't want to watch that shit." I was like, alright, fair enough. Well, two of the movies he let me watch were Terminator and Terminator 2, and they are my favorite action movies of all time. I put them above Die Hard, the Lethal Weapon series, and even Aliens. I lean towards Terminator 2 being my absolute favorite, but I consider the two movies as one experience. It's easier to do that now since the sequels are so inferior. James Cameron had a vision, and every movie after 2 is just not on the same level as his films. Developed by Teyon and published by Reef Entertainment, Terminator Resistance was released for PC in November 2019 and PlayStation 4 and Xbox One that December. The game ignores every film after Terminator 2 and is set during the war between the Resistance and Skynet. Now, I've been waiting for a good Terminator game for a long time. There are some good ones out there, but it's been years since we've seen a truly excellent Terminator game. One of my favorites is The Terminator for the Sega CD, and that system or add-on specifically. RoboCop vs. The Terminator is pretty good too. Terminator Resistance is the latest entry, and the question becomes, is it the Terminator game we've all been hoping for, or just another lackluster licensed game? Well, let's take a look. The story is set in Los Angeles after Judgment Day. It's a post-apocalyptic world, and the human resistance led by John Connor are at war with the artificial neural network known as Skynet, which has deployed robotic killing machines to wipe out humanity. The protagonist is Jacob Rivers, a resistance soldier, and the story opens with him as the only survivor of his unit evading Skynet patrols. He comes across civilian survivors, one of which looks like Danny Glover, and joins their group before meeting up with and joining a resistance TechCom unit led by Commander Barron. As Jacob completes various missions for the survivors and resistance, he's also being hunted by an infiltrator and aided by a mysterious stranger. The story digs deep into the resistance and their struggles. Jacob will interact with numerous NPCs and have to make choices which do affect the ending. Overall, the story isn't that bad. I think fans or anyone with knowledge on Terminator lore will get a lot more out of it. There's a lot of Terminator terminology thrown around, and I really love how the game doesn't disrespect or stray too far from the source material. On the other hand, the voice acting is pretty awful. Some performances are okay, but many of the deliveries and emotions feel forced. It feels like the game was designed by dedicated Terminator fans, and I really appreciate what they tried to do here. You can clearly see the love and passion. Now, you know those war scenes set in the future in the first two films that show off the post-apocalyptic world with resistance soldiers engaging Skynet machines? This game does a phenomenal job capturing the spirit of those scenes. It just nails the tone and atmosphere. You can run, jump, crouch, aim down sights, perform melee attacks, and carry 4 weapons at a time. However, you can store additional weapons and items in your inventory, but you do have a limited amount of inventory space. You can acquire items and resources by looting destroyed foes or by finding them in the environments. As you destroy enemies and complete quests, you'll gain experience and eventually level up. Each time you level up, you can spend a skill point to activate various skills across 3 categories: combat, science, and survival. Activating certain skills unlocks certain abilities or makes certain aspects of the game easier. For example, each weapon skill increases how much damage you inflict, and you'll eventually be able to wield more powerful plasma weapons. The different skills let you build your character to fit your playstyle. If you prefer to be stealthy, you have the option of activating skills that fit that style. If you'd rather engage the machines in combat, there are skills that are better suited for that style as well. You have options, and the skills do add some replay value to the game. I would say Terminator Resistance is a stealth action game, and there's always plenty of resources lying around. I never had to worry about ammo, and I always had plenty of medkits. You can sneak around enemies to complete objectives or blow them away if you have the right firepower. There are 4 difficulty modes: easy, normal, hard, and extreme, and I played through the entire game on hard. Overall, I would say the game is a bit on the easy side. The beginning of the game can be challenging, but by the end I was blowing away Terminators without much trouble, but I guess it depends on whatever skills you activate. I found that if you activate skills related to combat, like toughness, weapons, and explosives, explosives, then you eventually become overpowered. It feels that way anyway. But the skills do provide you a nice feeling of getting stronger as you progress. Skills can make things easier or more convenient, but it's the equipment and offensive and defensive items that can make a big difference on the battlefield. Ultravision goggles are one of the most useful pieces of equipment at your disposal. They allow you to see enemies through walls and solid objects within a limited radius, making sneaking around a lot easier. However, your movement becomes slower when using the goggles. You can activate a flashlight to see easier in dark areas, and eventually you'll acquire lockpicks which can help you gain access to different areas and containers, and a hacking device that lets you hack terminals and plasma turrets. Hacked plasma turrets will fire at enemies, making them extremely helpful. If you take enough damage, you'll have to heal yourself with medkits. Stimulants can provide you temporary bonuses, and you can lob pipe and can grenades to dish out significant amounts of damage to one or multiple foes. Sound decoys can be used to lure enemies like silverfish to their deaths. Many of the items you find are resources that can be used for crafting or trading at the shops, which can be either a supply locker or quartermaster. You can craft medkits, ammo, and items, and the more crafting skills you've activated, the more items you can craft. You can only craft items at crafting tables, which are peppered throughout the environments. There's different weapons you can acquire, including what I'll call human weapons like an Uzi, shotgun, M16, rocket launcher, and pistol. Shotguns can stun Terminators, but if you want to engage and destroy them, you'll want to use explosives or plasma weapons. There's different types of plasma rifles, a rail plasma, which kind of feels like a sniper rifle, and the plasma miniguns are my favorites. The rail plasma proves to be extremely useful since it can take out Terminators from long range, which is how I prefer to engage them anyway. There's a neat one-time use weapon called the Termination Knife that can be used to silently kill a Terminator from behind. Now, there are some weapons which I think should be categorized as offensive items instead. For example, a grenade type like the pipe grenade is considered an offensive item, but the laser trap is considered a weapon. What? That seems odd to me, and sometimes I would get confused as to what's a weapon and what's an offensive item. Most of the Terminators can kill you easily, so getting up close and personal is never ideal, and the human weapons are only really effective against certain types like spider scouts, drones, and armored spiders. The plasma weapons are what you want if you plan on going in all guns blazing. Furthermore, the plasma weapons can be upgraded with Skynet chips, which can be acquired from destroyed foes. You can upgrade things like fire rate, stability, clip, and damage. You have to install 3 chips on a plasma weapon and must make sure the ends of them match. Some chips are color-coded, which indicates something special. For example, violet chips don't require matching ends. It's an interesting system. Many of the Terminators you see in the films are present here, like T-800s and HKs. In fact, the roster includes numerous Terminators from the T-800 series. You'll get to engage T-825s, T-808s, which wield flamethrowers, and T-850s/infiltrator units. You'll get to battle T-47 units, which are these massive machines, HK aerial units, and an HK tank as well. The less threatening enemies include the Spider Scouts, drones, armored spiders, and silverfish, all of which can be defeated with almost any weapon. You can knock the T-800 series Terminators down, but they will get back up if you don't drain all their health, or in other words, destroy them. That said, it is pretty cool seeing the Terminators from the films look and behave like they do on screen. However, that means they don't think. If Terminator 2 is anything to go by, the switch on their CPU wasn't set to read and write, or learn, which would make sense here. If the machines detect you, they immediately start attacking, and the T-800 series of Terminators normally just walk towards you and fire. Some of them will throw pipe grenades. Keeping them at a distance isn't very difficult since you can run and they won't search for you relentlessly. They eventually stop searching and go back to patrolling. Plus, you can easily lure them into traps. As mentioned before, the beginning of the game is more challenging, and there's a greater sense of tension because you haven't activated many skills, you're very fragile, and don't have access to all of the firepower yet, so sneaking around is usually the best course of action. One mistake can result in your death. The game plays out in quests which take you to numerous areas around Los Angeles, like Pasadena, Hollywood Hills, downtown, and warehouse and medical districts, among other locations. Objectives have you doing things like retrieving items, locating NPCs, and killing specific enemies. Some quests have you fighting alongside other resistance soldiers, and these are always action-packed. There will be side quests to complete, and I tried to leave an area once without completing one, and was warned I would immediately fail the quest. I wish you could revisit areas freely. You can only go to where the story takes you. Also, once you clear an area of enemies, you can roam around it freely without worrying about anything, which is another reason why the game can sometimes feel too easy. I think a respawn system should have been implemented. After completing the main quest in an area, you'll have to travel back to a hideout or resistance shelter depending on where you are in the story. The hideouts and shelter are where you can interact with NPCs, acquire quests, craft items, and access the shop. The quest areas are pretty large, and items and resources seem to be lying around everywhere. There's plenty of objects, structures, and buildings to explore and use as cover, and you can use explosives to blow through damaged walls. If you activate the appropriate lockpicking and hacking skills, you can gain access to paths that make it easier to avoid enemies and or get to your destination. Laser traps, explosive canisters, and plasma turrets are the only real forms of environmental hazards, and each of them can be used against the machine. There are plasma containers littered about that can be destroyed, and you'll come across Skynet outposts that can be infiltrated and destroyed. These usually appear as side quests. Scattered around are notes which act as a form of collectibles, and every area will have safe houses where you can save your game and craft items. The presentation is one of the best things about Terminator Resistance. The machines look amazing, and are great reflections of their on-screen counterparts with fantastic animations. The lighting is good, textures look great, and the environments are an excellent reflection of those seen in the future war scenes from the films, especially the areas set at night. You'll get to navigate through a lot of destroyed buildings, there's rubble everywhere, destroyed cars are littered about, there are fires scattered around, and weapon models look great. Furthermore, there's nice visual effects going on, like parts of Terminators can get caught on fire, they'll emit sparks when damaged and destroyed, and the plasma beams that zip through the environments during a firefight look really cool. Other than witnessing some pop-in here and there, the visual presentation is excellent. As for the audio work, it's phenomenal. The first two Terminator films have some of the greatest music in cinema. The songs are awesome, and certain ones are composed in a way that perfectly capture the tension and drama of the scenes they're tied to. And the soundtracks perfectly fit the themes and tones of the films. That said, Terminator Resistance includes many of the classic tunes heard in the films, with some alterations. Many of the intense tunes kick in when you engage enemies, and many of the songs do a great job at heightening the tension like they do in the films. The sound effects are also incredible, weapons sound powerful, and the sounds of plasma fire seem to be ripped from the films, as do the sound effects of the enemies. Whenever you're in a war zone fighting alongside resistance soldiers, it'll sound as if you're actually in one of those future war scenes. It's pretty cool. On the technical side, I thought some of the load times were a bit long, but other than that, I have no major complaints. I'm not going to deny that Terminator Resistance feels somewhat shallow. There are better shooters out there. I feel like some mechanics and features should have been fleshed out more. But overall, I enjoyed the game. Sometimes it felt like a shallow version of Fallout 3, New Vegas, or 4. Except it's not open world, the combat is more fluid and enjoyable, and it's not broken. Furthermore, there's a crazy amount of fan service put in this game, and I just ate it all up. I loved it. Fans of the first two films will appreciate the care and attention to detail, and most of the nods to the movies are well implemented. Yeah, some feel thrown in just because, but nevertheless, each one resulted in me grinning. I had a great time with this, but it's far from perfect. As a shooter, it's kind of by the numbers. The Terminator coat of paint really makes it stand out. I would argue that this has taken the top spot in terms of Terminator games. I would love to see a more fleshed out sequel, and I really hope the developers allow the game to be modded. Maybe it already can be, I don't know, but I think mods can rectify some of the issues, and I would love to replay this with additional content and or different gameplay mods to mix things up. I would absolutely recommend Terminator Resistance to fans of the first two films. It respects the source material and captures the spirit of the war as depicted in those films. Gameplay-wise, there's not much here that we haven't seen other games do and do better. Compared to other shooters out there, Terminator Resistance is underwhelming but competent. As a Terminator game, I think it's the best one out there and a lot of fun to play. Definitely check it out.
Leave! Now!
How the hell's he still alive?
Go! Watch out! Don't just stand there! Run!
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, check out the rest of our channel, follow us at the links below, and you can also support us on Patreon.
If you're interested in more gaming content, check out our friends over at Gamecast.